Welcome to Your Practical Magic, where we talk about ways to recognize and encourage the magic in your everyday life. We're also big on celebrating when the practical is divine and when the magic is human, because it all counts. Hello, YPMers. It's Noreen here, and I can't wait for you to hear our inspiring conversation with Peggy Kim today. I bet, as most of us have experienced in our own ways, whenever ending preventable suffering becomes your motivating force, so many other graces and glories open up as you forge ahead. Peggy's been in the media and entertainment industry as an executive and content creator for almost 30 years. It wasn't easy to break into the business then, and she realized more than 20 years on, it hadn't gotten much easier. So she decided to fix that by creating the Future Now Media Foundation, a nonprofit leadership incubator focused on mentoring, training, and nurturing students from across the spectrum of America to become the best and brightest future media leaders. Peggy's dedication to the conscious, compassionate cultivation of these mentees became contagious, in the good way, sparking purpose and gratification among everybody involved. Industry leaders continue to guide and grow a vibrant, diverse, and inclusive community that stands for truth, integrity, and excellence. And alumni are now involved in producing events like this year's virtual conference. Gennifer has been on Future Now's board of directors, so she kicks off our conversation. Get ready for some powerful inspiration on putting your practical magic to work. And remember, when love leads, you can do anything because you do nothing alone. Off we go.
Hi, YPMers. It's Gennifer, and I'm here with Noreen.
Hey.
And today we are speaking with Peggy Kim, who's the founder and president of Future Now Media Foundation. Peggy and I met through a Women in Cable television event. And as I started speaking to Peggy and getting to know her, I felt like I had to be a part of this. For the past few years, I've been working with Peggy on so many incredible experiences around it, including her big conference that we just wrapped up. But one of the reasons I wanted to bring Peggy to Your Practical Magic is because the impact she's trying to make is so much more grounded and centered and from a place of just, I can't even begin to put words into it. It's such a different experience. You go to a lot of different conferences and workshops, and a lot of them are great. But Peggy brings something that is just higher level, and I mean from a higher level energy that is so touching and overwhelming and empowering and it's just exciting. And I just felt like our listeners need to know her as well as Noreen.
Wow. Thanks so much.
Talk a little bit about where this idea for Future Now came from and then what your vision is with this.
The start of Future Now as a concept came over the summers that I was building my company called I Stand TV and, bootstrapping it, pouring my own resources and finances into it to build this platform and this content studio, which is all about telling stories from a place of hope and encouragement so that people would hear stories that they wouldn't normally hear in mainstream media. And so I was building this and I had summer interns that I was bringing in and I would be mentoring them. I would be sharing with them about what the ecosystem of the media industry looks like, storytelling, what gets greenlit, why does something get greenlit, what is that process like. My background was as a producer, writer, and programming executive. And one of the other things that I did for my interns was open up my professional network and set up meetings for them with my colleagues at other companies, NBC, ABC, CBS, History Channel, so that they were getting more exposure. The first year of doing this, we were working at a makeshift office that my friend let me use for the summer. And these 3 students that I had at that time were about halfway through the summer and they were busy editing the pieces that they had shot. And so I just happened to look over my shoulder and look at them and they were all working so intently on the projects. And I was just like, wow, they've come such a long way in a very short amount of time. I sent them to a friend of ours, Mika Bondi at HBO. And I was like, Mika, could you spend a few minutes with these interns? And she offers to take them for 2 hours. That's a lot of time. Are you sure? I know how busy you are. And she's like, yeah, I'll take them to the commissary and talk to them. I'm like, okay, great. Mika took them for 2 hours, 12 to 2. And at 2:15, they hadn't yet come back. And she sends me an email at 2:15. And It's like one of those emails that, I keep saying I'm going to frame it. It was one of those turning points for me because she said, "Thank you so much for sending these students because you reminded me about what's important. And with all of the baloney and politics that we have to deal with on a daily basis, you reminded me what matters. And thank you so much for sending them to me because they were so well prepared. They were so humble. They were just effusive about their experience with you. And they asked such great questions. Thank you." Of course, I prepared these students, all of those kind of professional life skills, all of those things of how to research her. We went over the questions they would ask, what they would do when they would meet her, and all of that. But to see the impact that they had on her was something that I hadn't thought of so much because I'm thinking here, how do we pour into these younger people? And her feedback was a revelation to me because it's not just about the older ones or the more seasoned ones trying to give back and pour into the younger ones, but my peers, our colleagues, are also feeling encouraged and uplifted. And so what's going on? And so during that time, the industry was in the middle of so many mergers and acquisitions, and so many of our peers were being laid off. There was a very real, palpable sense of disillusionment and kind of a depression and a despair. And so to get that feedback from her, I was like, okay, something's happening. Here's this microcosm of an experience. Every person, individual involved in this process is somehow being blessed and encouraged and uplifted. How do I massively multiply this experience so that it's not just me and 3 or 4 interns over a given summer and a handful of colleagues, but how do I share this experience with more people? And so that was really the genesis of Future Now as an idea.
It was like you couldn't rest until you got this done. Like, people have these experiences every now and then. They're like, oh, that was cool. We should do this again. But where did you get this sign or the feeling in your body that you had to actually keep pursuing this and go forward with it?
Yeah, you know what? That's a really good question. I love the media industry. My dad was a print journalist. He was the chief correspondent for the Korea Times. And I wanted to be the next Connie Chung. I always knew the power that media has and the responsibility that comes with that power. And I love our industry. And with all its faults, with all its mistakes, with all its issues, I still love it. But I'm a problem solver. When I started, I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have somebody kind of walking me through and telling me, hey, this is a way to do it, or this is a better way to do it, or you should do this. And so, as I came up through my career, it has been very much figure it out, scrappy, learn, persevere type of experience. Because I didn't have somebody just taking me under their wing, which I was so craving. I so wanted that, but I didn't have it. And I would glean from people. I would learn different things from different people, but it was because I was gleaning from them and not because they were actively trying to feed me.
Yeah.
And so I was spending more time with college students, and most of them were not New York based interns. They were coming from other states.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I've been in the business for almost 30 years, and I'm watching these students have the same problems or the same challenges that I had when I was starting out. And I'm like, how could that be? Haven't we moved further along in helping people get resources and access? It hasn't changed from when I started. That's a problem. And then, of course, when I was at A&E Networks at History Channel as a programming production executive, I was also part of the Business Diversity Council. And I was the only person of color minority in programming across all of the networks. I was very successful, but my sensibility was different. And I was like, we can do stuff that matters and do it in an entertaining way. And so my heart is always not to be lazy about our programming and our programming decisions, but to take that thing that normally someone say, "Ooh, I don't like Brussels sprouts." It's actually tasty, but you got to season it the right way. You got to tell the story in the right way where you can have common touch points that somebody can like get it and enjoy it.
Like Aesop's fables.
Yeah, there's a way. There's a way to tell these stories where people can feel some sort of connection, even if it feels like that has nothing to do with me, but it draws you in because there are those universal human things that can draw us into any story.
Exactly.
So it's come from that love for the industry and wanting to see more diversity of stories, wanting to see more diversity in those leadership positions. And again, when I say diversity, I don't mean only color.
Yeah.
Color plays a part, but color is not the only filter for diversity. It's the diversity of experience. It's the diversity of background. Yes, it is the diversity of color because depending on what color you are, you have a different experience. It's geographic diversity. It's generational diversity. It's diversity of perspective. And to take all of that and to create something that is much richer and far more satisfying and far reaching than when it's more narrow cast.
Your whole voice and energy just changed when you talked about diversity because it's a calling. Like Jen asked, how did you decide that this is different, that you're going to not be like, oh, that was nice? And there's the answer right there. You're so passionate. It comes from such a deep place of truth for you, which is gorgeous. And I feel like that is connected to what you shared with us already, like this intergenerational influence and inspiration. You are basically transcending what your dad did as a journalist, and he did it in the medium of his day, which was paper.
Yeah.
And we have all gone on to have careers in television and particularly cable television, which was a great place for women to be when it was really thriving.
Yeah.
And then you're helping this next generation come in and do it both in television, but now television is such a broader, more diverse definition
Exactly.
of storytelling. So it really is like this intergenerational passion and commitment to the diversity of storytelling with meaning.
And with purpose,
Yeah.
we've gone through a season of these reality shows and I'm not against them, but I'm going for something that is deeper.
Yep.
What are we taking in? And if you actually think about what impact that is having on your psyche and on your thinking and on your mood and in your action and how you then speak to your children or you speak to your friends or your colleagues, everything impacts that. So I am personally very, very careful about what I take in.
A lot of what you're saying, Peggy, and one of the things that I picked up meeting you quickly and why I have been so passionately volunteering and involved in Future Now is your integrity and that through line everywhere. Because for you, providing these opportunities, bringing in bigwigs to speak to young professionals and graduates, your goal is about connecting good people to each other, to help each other, to lift each other up, to let someone stand on your shoulders, to open up doors and have the opportunities that you didn't have. Some people in this industry, and I guess any industry, are like, you have to pay your dues and work your way up. And sure, there's a little truth to that to a point, but you're coming from such a different place that what I've experienced is you attract the most unique, positive, and empowering people. Executives, speakers, mentors, students, graduates, attendees, volunteers across the board, whether it was the big conference or it was even just like a small task force. Every single conversation, every single interaction I've had in every single one of those big or small things has felt purposeful. And that to me comes from your leadership, your vision, what you put out there, and then therefore what you're attracting back.
Wow, thanks. Every year I've hired independent contractors and professionals to come in on the day of to do some of the live event stuff. And obviously this year we had to do it online because of COVID and what have you. And so the team this year was made up totally 100%, besides myself, of Future Now alums.
Oh, how amazing.
And so they were all current students, recent grads, but that come through the conference and who wanted to give back. And so we produced the entire thing with this team. And one of the things that I said to them from the beginning throughout and then at the end The feedback has been extraordinary. A lot of them said that it was life-changing for them, that it was a turning point, that they felt so lost and so discouraged and feeling like they don't know what they're supposed to be doing, and they felt connected. I use this word, you don't normally hear it in this context of professional or business speak, but they felt the love because I brought the love because I'm doing it out of love.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just too bloody hard. Nobody in their right mind, if unless they felt called to it, would be doing it because it's sacrificial work. So it's been out of absolute necessity and conviction that this has to happen because this is for the betterment of our industry. This is for the betterment of the future leaders coming into the industry. And they felt that not only through me and through my communications, but they felt that through the team because, the team weren't just behind the scenes, they were in front of the scenes. And so this to me is the vision for the future of where I would like to see the whole of the industry go. Again, here I am working with a little bit of a microcosm. This is the ecosystem that I have created to say, hey, this can work.
Yeah.
But it's always the heart and the intention and the spirit with which you do things that transcends everything. And I would say that's what made this conference in the past, and strangely, even more so this year because of COVID. And then, of course, the whole situation that was brought into greater light because of George Floyd's death. We are living in a historic time for us as a people, as a society, as a country, as in the world, because no one's been exempt. It's a huge opportunity for hope, a reset of thinking, a reset of priorities, a time to recharge and to refocus on the things that matter. And so my hope is that we will be totally changed for the better, not just for the good of some or for the good of more people, the common good for all. That's my hope.
So agree. And what I love in the example that you're living and creating is the idea that this is happening within a profitable industry, even an industry that's in flux, but it's quite a lucrative industry. And at the same time, there's room to help each other, to see each other, to inspire each other. And I think it's so important what you said that it may have started out giving these kids that did not have the mentoring.
Yeah, access to knowledge.
But the big surprise was that they're inspiring the senior executives just as much.
Yep.
And so this reciprocal life force, this energy starts swirling and creating change and creating possibility. And then, I mean, what you just said about the whole conference being produced by your alumni, I was thinking what you, Jen, said a little earlier, waiting for the return on your investment. Well, it's here.
Yeah.
What a point of pride in the best sense of the word, that you can look out and look at these hearts and souls that are changing by knowing each other and by being a part of this organization.
Yeah. At some point, we're all going to die.
Good buzzkill. No,
Let's be for real. We're not going to be here forever, right?
life is impermanent.
When you think about, when a president is ending their term, the news is always talking about what will their legacy be? There may be people who they are huge history changers and we will remember their name forever. But the majority of us are not going to be those big names that are written about in the history books. But our legacy is always going to be what we leave behind for that next generation. It's not going to be an object that we created. It's going to be those values that we leave behind. And so, we had 2 sessions during the conference called Relay. And this is a series that I produce on iStand TV. It's a interview conversation between mentors and their mentee, and the mentee is interviewing their mentor. And it's called Relay because we are all in this race together and we all have a baton to pass.
Exactly.
When you're watching a relay race, it's a team sport. And one of the most important parts of the relay race is the handoff.
Yeah.
There's a specific place on the track to do that handoff. And if you do it outside of that area of the track, you're disqualified. When you're practicing as a team, you're not only practicing your own individual runs, you're practicing your handoff. And there's a certain way you have to put out your hand. And the person with the baton needs to be running. You are both running at full speed and you are putting out that baton and you're not even looking back. The person holding the baton is still moving forward and looking forward, but their hand is out and it has to be in a certain position for the person running up behind them to get it from you and just keep on going. But you've got to do that within a certain timing. And that is such an incredible metaphor for what we should be doing generationally. At this point, our generation right now is holding the baton, and we have to be practicing already with the ones coming up behind us so that when it's their time for them to run with that baton, that they're ready to get it, grab it from you, and that you've practiced that handoff. It's an incredible metaphor for what we should be doing in terms of succession planning, in terms of mentoring, in terms of what is it that we're leaving behind. And then the other thing I would add to this as a coda, people who are power hungry, they think they only have one baton.
Right.
They're like trying to hold on to that baton for as long as possible. And that is a mistake. You actually have more batons than you think. And so it's not good for you to be the one holding that baton when you should be passing it off. I think the Asian part of me, we really respect those who come before us. We take care of our elder, we take care of our parents, as do many other cultures, but it's something that's very important in our Asian culture. When someone is handing something off to you, you also take care of the one that handed it off to you.
Mm-hmm. That's such an incredible analogy. I can feel it having been to the conferences. Like I said, everything big and small that you've done, that you've invited other people to participate in, it is exactly what you're discussing, which is just so unique and powerful. We should have so many more leaders like this in our industry and elsewhere.
Well, Peggy's creating that, having these alumni now, having had that visceral experience, and not even in the sense of payback. I mean, I'm sure maybe some of them it's a sense of payback, but it's really the excitement of being part of that handoff,
Yeah.
of that relay race.
Yeah. It's the practice. They're nowhere near ready right now.
Mhm. But you've had some of them move through and they're maybe halfway there.
Absolutely.
In my coaching training, there's something they roughly say that even if you're 2 steps ahead of somebody, you're able to help them. You have something to offer. It's a whole continuum.
Yeah. And it's a spirit of generosity. And we have to be so conscious of our egos and be confident in who we are. I think a lot of people fall into the trap of, well, I achieved a certain title and if that title gets taken away, you forgot who you are. You don't know who you are anymore because you've attached your identity to those things.
Exactly.
I think that's why people suffer from midlife crisis is because they've tied their identity to things that they discovered like, oh, that wasn't it.
Wow, it's 100%. And it's funny, it's reminding me of a conversation that I had just this morning
Yeah.
with somebody who built a business and a middle-sized business, about 20 people, sold it to a bigger company and remained a consultant. And then very organically realized that he was evolving into the role of mentor. So rather than being, the business owner with a different set of objectives, he was able to become the mentor and really start to take on the younger people in the practice, which had now grown by literally 1,000-fold.
Wow.
It's so much more rewarding. Now, when he started that business, he didn't want to be a mentor, right? He was building a business. He was at a different life stage. But now this is the appropriate place for him. And so I think to your point, if you are holding on to that baton so tightly that not only someone else can't grab it, you're not receptive for the one that's ahead of you being passed to you.
That's great. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. The baton has to get passed. If you don't pass the baton, you lose.
Exactly.
This is such a good conversation. Peggy, we have some questions that we always like to ask our guests. So my first question for you is, what advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
That's perfect for you.
Exactly.
Oh gosh, what would I tell myself? Wow, why is that one hard? I think I was pretty confident at the time in certain ways, and I knew this to be true, but I would amplify it more. I'm a person of faith, and so I would say don't worry. God sees, God knows, and he will never put you in a position to set you up for failure. He will always equip you. And I knew that then, but I would just say that's one of the biggest lessons. And so when I faced challenges and people being jealous of my success, the person who I considered a mentor at the time completely betrayed me. I did not know what to do with that situation because I was so shocked and so hurt, and I didn't know how to handle conflict. I only knew how to respect my elders. I didn't know how to have difficult conversations with them. This was one of those career milestones. I knew that I had to speak to her, but I didn't have the tools or the experience or somebody to tell me, oh, you should handle it this way. Like I didn't have any of that. And I just prayed and I was like, God, you got to put the words in my mouth. And I asked that you would help her to just receive whatever it is that you're going to put in my mouth, because I don't know what to say or how to say it. And I'm afraid it's going to come into some emotional big mess. And he equipped me. I addressed the situation with her respectfully and gracefully. And then she apologized. That completely changed the tone and tenor of our relationship. And it was wonderful. That's just what I would just reemphasize to myself at age 20.
It's a beautiful story. What is your best new discovery?
My best new discovery. I want to say that from this conference, and it's not new, but again, it's more of a affirming that no matter what the obstacle is, and no matter what the technical limitations are in this isolation and distance, the spirit of love and generosity will transcend everything. And people will feel that, because the students really, I've been so blown away by them telling me that they felt connected. I saw, from a producer's perspective, there were moments in this conference, I'm like, oh, crap. This should have been done better. I should have did this audio issue and blah, blah, blah. Not that I could have done anything about it, but I was beating myself up and thinking like, oh man, if I'm thinking this, others must be thinking it too. And yet quite the contrary in terms of the feedback that I've been getting. And so to me, that's like, okay, they felt the love, and that transcended everything. It's like they never saw the mistakes. They never saw the glitches.
Peggy, I think that's part of this recalibration that we're all experiencing and taking real shape in our lives. There's been so much about that linear type of perfection, but it does come at the expense of the experience and of the love and of the joy. And I think that's a really beautiful thing, that it seems all of us, with all of our Zoom conversations and, cats on keyboards and whatever it is, guess what? You don't need the perfection. I know that's a big lesson I'm getting myself.
Yeah, you're right.
Next question.
What brings you home?
What brings me home? The subway.
Okay.
But
Do you have a favorite memory of when the practical and the magic collided in your life?
My favorite place of joy and peace and relaxation is sitting on the beach, watching the waves. So that to me is practical in so many ways, because it brings down my blood pressure. I'm just happy as a clam. Yeah, it's magical.
Perfect.
Just beautiful.
What is your favorite word?
2 favorite words. One is love, because it just is, it's love. And the other one is beach. Close second is Mexico Beach.
Oh, I thought you were going to tell me Spain.
Oh, I love Spain. Spain was my number 3 word, but Mexico has been on my list for so long. But yeah, Spain is very much a close second.
It's awesome. What a fun conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for having me. It's kind of cathartic to be able to have this conversation. So thank you.
That's this episode of Your Practical Magic. Thanks for being here with us. Please remember to like and share on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And go to @YourPracticalMagic on Instagram or Facebook for visuals on all of our doses and more. Please like and share there too.